Thank you so much, Max. Yes, as you said, we're now going to talk about regenerative agriculture. And I'm very excited to introduce to you the two speakers that I have here with me for this session. So please, everybody, meet Nishanth, who is the director of the Oshadi Collective, which has really been a great success story since its founding in 2016. So Oshadi is a sustainable solution collective for new regenerative artisanal fashion and textile systems. And it really has an uncompromising and holistic approach of how it is going about recreating regenerative materials. Since March 2019, they have sown crop on over 5 acres of land, have harvested their first regenerative cotton, and through extensive research and partnerships, like I said, have really got a lot of successes to tell us about today, including their collaboration with their first brand partner, Christy. And the second person I am introducing to you is from exactly that organization. So please meet Aras Baskauskas, nearly, who's the CEO of Christy, a women's clothing company that is focused on creating dresses in reciprocity with Mother Nature. So they were unable to find regenerative cotton when they first started looking at the global market and set off to sow and grow their own materials. So in 2019, as I mentioned, they started partnering with the Oshadi Collective and are here to tell us all about that partnership and story. It's great to have you both here with us.
Thanks for having us, Geraldine. We're excited to be here, and hello to everybody in the audience as well. I wish we could see your faces.
Yes, and big shout out, of course, to everybody watching in the room and online. And thanks so much for joining this year's Fashion Summit, or this spring's Fashion Summit. I would love to start the session by asking you both for a bit of definition. So regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming, how would you both define the difference between regenerative approaches and perhaps approaches around circularity and sustainability that we've been discussing in the past? What's new for you? Nishanth, would you like to begin?
Yeah, sure. Regen ag, if you just look at it as agriculture, it has like a set of practices, the practices which go back to ancient Indian practices, and it's got like a new term called regenerative, and it works on, I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience know about the basic standard regenerative farming practices like crop rotations, multi-cropping, restoring ecosystems, animal welfare, water infiltration, building back the soil we've destroyed for years and years. And I think that's more coming towards a regen ag. But what we do through our partnership with Aras and Christy is more like regen fashion, because it doesn't stop at agriculture. I think it's a holistic system, and you look at it as regen fashion, as a regen supply chain, because it goes all the way from like the farm, and it goes all the way to the sewing and beyond, like, the closet. And I think looking at these regenerative relationships, reciprocity in every part of the supply chain is like a holistic regen supply chain, I think. Aras?
Thank you. Aras, do you have anything to add, like, from a brand perspective?
Yeah, I think Nishanth said that really well. I think for us and for me, it's I try not to think of regenerative as agriculture. Certainly there's a way to be regenerative in your relationship with the land, and that's really important. But for me, it begins with our relationships with ourselves. It's regenerative principles to me are all about relationships. How do we treat ourselves? How do we treat each other? How deeply can we get to know ourselves to recognize that there's no separation between us and the soil, between the farmer and the seamstress and the person wearing the piece? It's all related. And when we realize that we have the capacity, each one of us, to be healers, then the opportunities arise in really profound ways.
It sounds very beautiful the way you said it, nearly spiritual. So maybe we'll get into those relationships a little bit later on during the course of our conversation. As we're already talking about relationships, perhaps, Nishanth, you can outline a little bit on a very practical base what has changed? What is perhaps different in the cooperation with the farmers, the people working on your fields, due to perhaps different workflows that you have because of this regenerative approach, in contrast to more traditional ways of agriculture?
I think the start of the start of it, I think it starts with Christy Don, because Christy Don are like our first brand partners, and we met them in 2019. We had similar goals. They came from a point of making clothes in a regenerative way, and we came from a point of making clothes in a regenerative way. And I think when we see like initial days when we started working together, I didn't really know much about agriculture. We just know like the conventional agricultural systems. I really knew about like the ancient systems, and found out working with Christy Don that those were exactly what regen agriculture, stood for. So from 5 acres to like doing nearly 200 acres, from making like 20 units for Christy Don to making, this month. I think every piece of cloth that goes out from our premises would be the cloth we've grown with a community of farmers for Christy Don. And Christy Don like came in, they were the first brand to support us and believe in us. And like over a period of about 3 years, it's come from making 50 units for just like very, very small portion of the collection to doing almost the entire collection just with the region. And in terms of community, it's like there's so much I could say. I don't think we have enough time to say in this short duration, but it's become like, the income level of farmers, it's gone up like 3 to 5 times. The community has grown from 5 to 200. Just to give you a recap, like when we went in for 5 acres, literally like we were told off by so many people that this is not possible, like we won't support you. And we actually paid people to start it, because they wouldn't start like without getting like upfront payment. And now that's kind of turned into like a business model where we with support from our brand partners kind of support the take the risk of farming, because previously the risk of farming entirely was a burden on the farmers. Like not previously, even now 90% of the supply chain completely burdens the farmers. So let's say if it rains, the crop goes off, I think it's farmer that gets like affected, but now it's kind of a partnership. So the impact is spreaded throughout, and if something goes wrong, it goes wrong like throughout the system, which means everyone takes a small affection. It's not like one person taking it all system. So it's more like process, like it's development throughout the supply chain. It's not just like one part of it. But yeah, that's before and after, before and now, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Nishanth. Aras, let's talk about it from your sort of perspective, your side of the story. Perhaps just stepping back, what was the point where you decided at your company to not just look at sustainability anymore and use sustainable grown materials for your products, but really move to regenerative approaches?
Yeah, I think for me, it was I have 2 small children, and we were using dead stock fabric to build our business. And it felt really good to say we weren't part of the problem. But it didn't feel really good to tell my children 10 years down the line, when the last lion has been poached, that all I could say is that I wasn't part of the problem. The question was, how can we be part of a solution? And when we met Nishanth, if I had more time to tell you guys how we met Nishanth, it might give you all goosebumps. But I really believe that when you start, the universe align in your favor. And the idea was,
perfect.
Let's be.
It was going to be my next question. So please share the story with everyone.
Okay, so this is from my side, and Nisha can tell you his. I understood that we got to grow our own cotton regeneratively. That rather than waiting for somebody else to do it, that we had the size, even though we were still very small, that we could start growing cotton regeneratively. And so I had no idea how to start, so I Googled regenerative cotton and I found nothing. Then I Googled ethical cotton and I found this organization in California called the Responsible Sourcing Network. They said, we can't help you, but we're losing funding. We have this great employee named Maren Wilson. You should meet with her. So I met with Maren. I hired her on the spot. And she called a woman named Rebecca Burgess from Fibershed. and said, hey, I'm working with Christy Dawn. They want to start a regenerative cotton farm. Do you have any leads? She said, no, I've got nothing. That same day, Nishanth was listening to a podcast that Rebecca had done ages before, liked what she had to say, guessed her email address, typed in like 5 different iterations of it, and said, hey, I want to start a regenerative cotton farm, but I need a brand to partner with. Like, even telling the story, I swear, I'm not joking. I have goosebumps just telling it. Like, the need, we found each other, and it wasn't by the work of our brains. It was really, truly like we aligned at a really kind of like soul level, and the universe was like, all right, cool. You guys want this? You're going to get this. And certainly, like, it's not been without its challenges. But what Nishanth is saying is, like, we started with 5 acres. Right now, Nishanth is managing 200 acres, and it's not just Christy Dawn. It's many brands now. And the beauty of it is if it was just Christy Dawn and Oshadi, it wouldn't be impactful. It's got to be all of us, right? And eventually, hopefully, all cotton gets grown regeneratively. But hopefully, it's not just that. It's a shift in a mindset. To me, to answer that question again that you asked initially, what is regenerative philosophy? It's that we all benefit because we're all connected. And as Nishanth was saying, if something goes wrong, we all feel the weight of it. And if something goes right, we all benefit from it, right? And so, like, I just want to say, I've never actually said this to Nishanth. We're good friends. But what the work that Nishanth is doing and the way he's carrying this torch on this initial spark that happened together is truly incredible. And I feel so good knowing that we have people like Nishanth that are doing such incredible work to build these systems, which takes so much time and energy. And Nishanth could go on to tell you some of the challenges that he's had at the political level, the local political level, and these changes, because our farm, the farm that we did together, that we're doing together, the farmers make 3 times the amount. So can you imagine what the conventional farm mafia thinks when you got this young kind of maverick over here saying, I'm going to pay the farmers 3 times more, and what happens to that whole kind of economic system? But I don't know, I'm rambling. I think it's really incredible what happens when we all decide that we get to be part of the change and we don't wait for somebody else to tell us what to do.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful story of like sending the right energy out of the universe and then that being answered. And obviously this was very much meant to be. So it's great to learn about the sort of cosmic nature of this partnership as well as the practical nature. Nishanth, I would obviously be really interested for you to pick up on some of the points that Aras just mentioned, like, being the new kid on the block with a completely different approach. Like, what were some of those challenges that you ran into and some of those political dialogues you had to lead? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of just groundbreaking you have to do in the conversations you have with other stakeholders.
And Nishanth, don't say anything that's going to get you killed.
Please.
Thanks for your kind words, Aras. Thank you. I'm grateful you feel that way. But yeah, there was like a lot of challenges. Like how the cotton market works here. It's like a commodity market, and you have to basically go in, and commodity market is of course like controlled by like big mills. So you can't cut through the commodity market, cannot do anything. So if you'd ask to like a union for seeds, they wouldn't let you get the seeds, or like if you asked to farmers to join you through the commodity market, it wouldn't work. So what we started doing is I was starting to go on like the mob. Like it was a perfect timing during the lockdown because like everything was like kind of empty apart from agriculture. So I was going from like one village to the other, like just talking to farmers. Hey, we have this thing, and we can support you transition your land, and you get more income. Would you want to take part in that? And what happened was like locally there was such a big backlash because the income we are paying is the wages, the salaries we are paying is at least 2 to 3 times more than like a local thing. So what they said was, if we start doing this, it would mean we start losing labor. So they started like pushing us away. But you've got to stand up for what you really want, and that's what we did. Like it was a lot of hiccups initially, like with 1 farmer, 2 farmers, just like trying to get through. And I guess like every business has its own like challenges in its own way, and ours was this, just dealing with a local like system, local community, and like as an outsider, as a young boy, like just going in and trying to like speak to people who are like 50, 60-year-old and like they're in this for 30 years and like just make them understand it's not possible. So you fight your fight. and you get one farmer on board, and you get two, and then you get like 10, 20, 50, 100, and now it gets, I wouldn't say it gets easier. It's definitely getting more tougher. But yeah, you start building a family, you start building a community, and once you start doing things, you learn, and once the farmers build trust in you, they stand for you. Which means, like, 3 years ago, I was standing there by myself, just like asking for these things, and now I stand there with like 200 different farmers asking for the same thing. So it's like a different place we are in from how we started. Yeah.
So that's already one great success metric. Maybe let's run through a couple of the other really big, success stories that you've managed to generate. I think you grew from...
Share one story. There's a story.
Yeah, please, Aras, go ahead.
Okay, so Nishanth has talked a little bit about how regenerative farming practices really truly are indigenous farming practices. Earth worshipping people who have cared and been in reciprocity with the land for thousands of years, right? Well, the first 4 or 5 acres that we took, the land wasn't owned, but it was caretaken by this couple named Eshwari and Kupasamy. And Eshwari was the matriarch, and she herself is an herbalist who has so much ancestral wisdom of the land. Okay, so when I got there, she like showed me around. This is what we do for toothaches. This is what we do for stomach aches. This is what we do when we're feeling malaise. The time that we came the second time, we brought a camera crew, and they went to go film in a conventional chemical dye house. And of course, what happened, the camera operator sprained his knee and he couldn't walk. And it was a couple days where he couldn't walk. And Eshwari said, bring him to me. And so Eshwari then gave him like a 20-minute massage that he described as very, very painful. She used sesame oil and a bunch of herbs from the farm. And he got up and he walked. Now, that is not Western medicine. That's not something that you're going to read in an American Medical Association book. But that is deep wisdom. Now, Eshwari has a son named Selvam who had to move out of Tamil Nadu into the state of Kerala because of, and we can go deeply into this, but I'm sure most of you already know about the debt spirals that farmers face and how so many people are moving young people off of rural farms into cities for a more of an economic future. So Selvam's children aren't learning Eshwari's wisdom because they're not living with Eshwari. But because of the farm, Selvam could move back and the grandchildren could move back, and the possibility to maintain these ancestral lines of wisdom, these oral traditions that are so valuable, are maintained. And to me, there's so many success stories, but to me, that is a story that is related to regenerative agriculture, regenerative systems. A truly healing reciprocal relationship with the land is one that allows for the wisdom to carry through the living libraries that are us human beings.
I think
so interesting, the story that you shared. Sorry if I just may very quickly interject, just to say, first of all, obviously it's an amazing story and so profound, and it's also maybe surprising to some people in the audience that this is what you would point out as a key success story, and not like picking up on how many acres and just the quantifiable measures, but these really qualitative measures, which I think says so much about how you're going about your work and your projects. So sorry if I interrupted, Nishanth. Right back over to you. Maybe just to add with a question, because this is something I was reading up on in the preparation to our interview. If not many of the things that we're now branding as regenerative agriculture is really just giving more space and a different, perhaps, title to some very traditional techniques and allowing those to thrive again.
Yeah, I think that, I really want to go back to that oil massage with Aras was telling, and most people in the audience would think, why is he telling that specific story? But, when we talk about regen agriculture, it's as simple as that. As humans, we've made the system so complex, and why that story is really important. And the reason is, regen agriculture is not a space technology. You're not traveling to Mars. It's not that. It's just a very simple thing, and made really complex by so many complex systems, by mills, by so many people, commodity markets. It's just the most simplest thing. When I sit down and think about it, it's just basically mimicking nature, and you just go in and you just like understand what's going on and just see like how the nature behaves, and you're basically imitating the nature, and it's such a simple way. And I think like when I speak to so many brands, people think like, whoa, this is regen ag, and like, how do you, I mean, it's difficult for us to do it because like you are the first people to do it, but once everything everyone starts practicing it, is the most simplest form of agriculture, because people practice this for like ever. This was like before 200 years, before Green Revolution, before like chemicals came in. Chemicals, like it's just 200 years of chemicals, maybe even lesser, like, you know what I mean? And before that, like, we've always relied on these agricultural systems. And if people could practice this 200 years ago, like, we live in such a modern world now with so much technology, so much access to information. Um, and, just practicing something is just about getting things done. And, once you start doing this, it's very, very simple. And it's about like, as Aras said, it's about relationship. It's not about just it's about mindset. You come in and like, you don't come in with a marketing mindset, but you come in with a humanitarian mindset. Like, how do you deal with a person? How do you deal with a seamstress? How do you deal with a tailor? How do you deal with a farmer? When you look at him, do you look at him in a condescending way? When you look at her, like, are you looking at her in a condescending way? Like, she's your seamstress. Like, if she doesn't sew your garment doesn't sell for 300 quid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a farmer if he doesn't work there for like 10 hours a day. So it's more like a partnership. I'm partnering with Aras. Aras is partnering with a farmer. Like, when you come in, you look at them as partners, like, and that is a kind of mindset. It's so hard for, like, so many brands reach out to us asking us to send photos of like people, like, just children's working in the farm, or like, some stuff. But that is a kind of mindset, like, it's so deeply ingrained. And like, that's what with Christy and with other brands on board, like, we learn. And the kind of relationship that Christy has with us, it's respect, like, it's partnership. And that's what, like, that's why the partnership has grown so much. You really believe in stuff, and you really respect people. And when you go in, when you work with a supplier, like, there's so many names: vendor, suppliers, terms, tailors. Like, you go in with the same mindset and just look at them, the way you look at yourself. And once you start realizing that, it's as simple as that. Like, the change is there. The change is in the mindset, and everything else is just like, once you change the mindset, which is the most difficult part of it, everything kind of becomes streamlined. Like, I would say, like, it's a lot of work, so much different work, but like, it's a simple work. It's not complicated. It's not complex.
Yeah, and I'll just tag on to that.
Please,
so I was just
go
going to
ahead.
tag on, like, we could farm every acre on the planet regeneratively, but if we don't change the way we view ourselves, we'll still figure a way to extract and exploit from each other, right? And so we get to change, and we get to keep changing, because it's in a regenerative philosophy, it's an ever expanding, ever evolving process. And so the invitation for each one of us is to give ourselves permission to constantly be in an edit, to give ourselves permission to be broken, so that we can find out where the healing gets to happen.
Wow, I think that's a very sort of mic drop moment, and it's so well explained on both of your sides. I was going to ask a sort of final question. I read in preparation of our conversation today a lovely Vogue article that is just a feature basically on your corporation, some of the things you do. And in that article, it was pointed out that much of the nature of what you're doing and the role of regeneration is about relationships. And after reading the article, I was going to ask you both to explain what you mean by that today, but I think you both did that just now in a very beautiful manner, and a very concrete way that our audience can also take that as a little bit of a call to action to each and every one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those in the audience listening, I would really encourage you guys to to see what Oshadi is doing, because it's so cool. It like I can't speak highly enough about Nishanth and the work that he's doing, and I really feel like he is going to be someone who's going to be leading our industry for many decades to come into a regenerative future. So thank you, Nishanth.
Thank you, man. You really leave me with like high expectations, but thank you.
No pressure at all though. But no, thank you to both of you for the amazing work you're doing. Any last shout outs, any sort of things that you want to point our audience out directly to check out or look up after listening to the both of you today?
Yeah, go outside and feel the earth. She's amazing.